Hello and welcome to the second episode of Where's the Art? My name is Ambrose Avellano and I would like to introduce tonight's work. The first work is a Rembrandt and it's a self-portrait as Ixius, an artist from the Greek era 5 BC. The story behind this work is that at the time there was a competition between two Greek artists to find out who would be the better one. In this case, Rembrandt portrays himself as the failed artist. He does not portray himself as the winning artist. And that is very telling because at the time that he painted this portrait, he was near a pauper. He had lost all his reputation, he had lost all his money because Rembrandt would not compromise his art. The next painting we're going to see tonight is Tracy Emin with My Bed. Again, a controversial piece of work because it's what's called a ready-made. She did not make the bed. She just placed her own bed on which she has spent 3 days after breaking up with a boyfriend. And for me, it is a self-portrait as well as a Rembrandt. Is what we call a confessional self-portrait. I hope you enjoyed the show and I would like to introduce tonight's guests.
My name is Willa Vasquez. I'm an artist and I've been painting all my life.
I'm Patrick Zaccarello, art collector and restaurateur.
Hello, Willa.
Hi.
Tell me, in the work of Rembrandt, where's the art?
Well, it's no secret that Rembrandt is a master. He's a giant. In this portrait, he did 37 portraits, self-portraits. In fact, for me, this is not one of his best ones. It's one of the ones that he did in the latter years of his life. It is one of the few, if not the only one, that is actually leaning forward, thus giving the impression, and smiling, you know, thus giving the impression that it's not a serious portrait as such. He's represented as Zexis, which is a 5th century painter. But the art is, Rembrandt's art is, his forte really is the chiaroscuro, the light that he portrays. And even though this portrait is very, very simple and very limited in palette, you can see the master come through. It's almost like an oil sketch to me. It's done very, very quickly. He probably did it in a day, but it's the master with his hand and his highlight, the warm glows against the dark background.
Basically, you're sort of bringing out to the light the skill of the artist.
The skill is
in
the
handling,
light.
In handling the materials of oil paint.
And also the very rapid, in this case, the very rapid, rough brush stroke, the maturity of the artist. I mean, we talk about Impressionism, but Impressionism existed 500, 600, 700 years ago. It didn't start with the French Impressionists.
Right, that's interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, this is very impressionist. I think also to the fact that maybe because we tend to lose our sight a bit when we get older, I've noticed that artists, as they do get older into the later years of their life, they become more impressionist. And I think the reason is, part of the reason must be that their eyesight was not as accurate as when you're 20 or 30 years old.
That would make sense because you can't make out the sharp lines anymore.
But he's almost like a jester. You know,
I'll come back to that area later on. There's a very interesting anecdote regarding this painting. Patrick, where's the art in Rembrandt?
Well, where's the art? I mean, what strikes me immediately about this is that the human condition of this, of the subject matter, which is himself, that there's a very sort of deep sort of look at this person's face, and I can't say I can say he's smiling in some ways, but I think it implies also he's had a troubled life. And it seems to be towards the end of his life that he's showing that he's half broken. As Willa has mentioned, he's sort of has got a crouched position. But his face is faintly smiling, but it seems as if he's had a hard time. And the myth of Exvius who was a failed painter, is obviously quite reflective perhaps of this, that he saw himself as a bit of a failure.
Yeah, I think at this stage, I think I'll introduce the anecdote surrounding this portrait. In the 5th century BC, the two most famous painters was Ixius and Parathius, and they decided to have a contest to see who was the best one. And the day came when they had to unveil the works, and Ixius unveiled his, and he had painted a bunch of grapes so realistically that the birds would come and peck at the grapes. But when it came to the turn of Parathius to unveil his painting, they couldn't unveil it because he had actually painted the curtain. So obviously Parathius won the competition. What is interesting is that Rembrandt paints himself as the failed artist, as the loser. He doesn't paint himself as the winner, which coincides with what Willa and you are talking about the decline of his years, because Rembrandt was a very, very famous and very popular artist in his youth. But because he wouldn't compromise his art, he lost his patronage until he became nearly a pauper. What I would like to suggest to you is that this is a confessional portrait. He's saying something about himself, about his feeling, about his pain. What do you feel about that, about this being a confessional type of portrait? It's not a glamorous portrait. He's not saying, no, look how nice I look, look how rich I am.
As I said, it's not a clear sort of vision of himself. It's not a simple vision. Oh, he's smiling or laughing. There's a great sadness, but yes, balanced by a sort of smile. That he's had perhaps a very tough life, but there's still a sort of glimmer in his eyes. That,
yeah.
No?
See. Yes.
He's almost like a broken man, really. He did suffer. He had 5 children, and 4 of them died, as was usually the case. A lot of children, died, some of them at childbirth.
Yes, indeed.
But he was at the pinnacle of his career. He was very, very powerful, very rich. And then he ended up, as you have rightly said, as a pauper. But this is a man that shows humility. I think this portrait is not so much about how it's painted, but what it portrays. It shows humility at the end of his life. And this was painted, like, I think 3 or 4 years before he died, so it is towards the end of his life. It's not, for me, one of his best portraits. I wondered why you had chosen this, because Rembrandt has amazing self-portraits with incredible light. I would like to ask you, why did you choose this one?
I chose this because the companion piece to this work, which we shall see in a minute, is also, to my mind, a portrait, a self-portrait. Even though there's no painted face in it, it is still a self-portrait for me. And I thought it'd be interesting to see how a non-representational work would stand up to a representational work. And that will be a very interesting, on the second part of the program, we'll be looking at Tracy Emin's My Bed, and see if we can find associations and similarities with Rembrandt. Because for me, he's making fun at life. He said, look at me, I have been the king of the painters in Holland, and look at me now. I'm a failed painter, nobody wants my work anymore. Obviously, he's a great artist, as we know, but he would not compromise. He would not compromise his vision. That's why he lost his trade, because in those days, they would have to commission to paint the portraits, but he would put them with shadows on their faces. He would push them back in the canvas. And of course, if you've paid so much money to have your portrait painted, you want to be in the front row full of light, but he wouldn't do that. So obviously he got less and less trade until eventually he became a pauper.
Yeah,
But one of the greatest artists that the world has ever produced.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we want to agree that this is a confessional portrait. I'm trying to eke this out of you, that it's not just a portrait about glamour or about likeness, but it's about saying something about your life.
Oh, very much so.
And about your
Very much so.
personality.
Definitely.
I think he's known.
He's
further.
peering into, because he's looking forward, like he's leaning forward, he's like peering at the viewer, almost in a, I wouldn't say in an ironic way. I wouldn't say he's just smiling. I would think he's like the irony of life.
Yes,
no?
yes, exactly, yes, exactly.
I've been at the top and
And
now,
look at me now.
and look at me
Yeah,
now. And I've
yeah.
actually been to his house in Antwerp. And it is an amazing, obviously it's a museum now,
Yes,
an amazing manor house that he decorated. He was also a decorator, an interior decorator.
Right,
he
right.
decorated himself.
Yeah, yeah.
So beautiful gardens. I mean, he was very wealthy at one time.
He was. He had
The lifestyle
he could
that he
boast
had.
that he had a house in the centre of town, and that was a great accolade.
That's
I'll
right.
give the last word to you, Patrick. Anything more to add before we move on?
What I think about this painting also is that there's a sincerity about it,
Yes.
and there's no vanity.
The
It's-
honesty of the man. Yes, yes.
He seems to be a broken man in some ways, but there's still a glimmer in his eyes that
Yes.
you know that
Yeah.
that
He's done
he
it
can
all.
take it. He can take
He
it
can take
despite
it.
everything.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And I think I don't know much about artistic style, but the way he uses light to
Yes.
so
well,
cleverly
that is
to
his
highlight
strength. That is his strength.
to highlight the face.
He's,
no,
as Willa mentioned, the Chiaroscuro, he was a master of that. And it's true what Willa says about the impressionistic style. Apparently there was an anecdote saying that you could tell a Rembrandt because you could pick it up by its nose. And I think we'll have to wrap it up for the first part of the program now. Join us again after the break. Thank you. Welcome back to part 2. Well, Patrick, here we have it. Tracy Emin in my bed. Where's the art there?
Well, I think the art reflects very much like the Rembrandt, the human condition. I think this reflects clearly, well, to my mind, modern life in the 20th century, because it was painted in 1998.
This is not a painting, Patrick.
It's not a painting, but it has the impact of, it's very, very real, which I suppose a lot of art aspires to. I think it reflects sort of modern city women.
If you look carefully at the photograph, you will see it's actually her bed that she took out of her house, of a bedroom, and placed it in the Tate Gallery, as it was,
Yeah.
according to the sources.
Well, I think it reflects possibly the state of human life, in her human life, the life of many. I mean, I've read a bit about this, and apparently she spent 3 days feeling suicidal. It's a reflection in some ways of depressed people, modern people in the city, or women who are very depressed in the city. I keep saying the city because
I see
people
what you're
talk
saying,
about
yes.
problems in city life and the loneliness and the way everything's tossed around, the rubbish, her knickers, their vodka bottles, condoms, her stock. There's a sort of chaos which seems to reflect a human condition, one of desperation.
Would you say it represents the general human condition or her particular condition?
I think it reflects her particular human condition, which is reflected of that of a lot of people's.
Yes, I'm sure there's echoes of other people in that work, that's right, yeah. Would we say that it's also a confessional work like the Rembrandt?
Oh, very, very much so. I think probably the bed where we spend so much of our time. In using it, she's cleverly used a symbol of much of life. We spend at least, a third of the day there.
Indeed.
A third of our lives.
It's a very personal space.
A very, very personal
And
space.
she's allowing us to enter into that personal space.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think it is art because it reflects. I don't think 100 years ago this would have it has a sort of social realism to it. I don't know when beds were invented, but they haven't been with us the whole time. And the way individuals live in modern time, single parents, people who choose to remain single the whole time, I think it reflects a form of life
very
which is...
interesting, Patrick, very interesting. Willa, what do you reckon the art is in my bed?
The art is into making people believe it is art.
Very good, very good.
But
Are you saying it's a contrick then? Is a bit of a contrick, yes?
Well, I mean, I've said that, but obviously I know that we have to do a program and I have to expand on it.
It's very interesting. No, you're quite right that you can think like that. It's very right that you think this way, because by the mere fact that the piece of the bed is in a gallery,
yes.
we already assume certain
Absolutely.
Things and certain contexts.
I was going to carry on saying anything that is put into a gallery for show, for people to go and watch and see and view, automatically becomes art. Why? Because people that go into a gallery expect to see works of art. So if you see this bed, people might think, what rubbish? But they don't want to be seen as ignorant.
Yes.
All right? So a lot of people might say, well, I don't understand it. But nobody has the guts to say, that is rubbish, where is the art? This is not, for me, it's sensationalism. And there's already art in that. It's not fine art, but there's an art in thinking, in the thought process of creating this bed that existed. Obviously, it's like a self-portrait of Tracy Emin, and bully for her. I mean, she's made millions. She's from a person that was nearly unknown. She became notorious. I mean, all that is art in itself, of creating an uproar of something that is so everyday life.
What about the thought that she had of saying, I am going to put my bed in the gallery? That actual thought, would that count as art?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That I mean, it could have gone both ways. It could have gone that, it wouldn't have been a success because, okay, 90% of people don't like it as art, but nevertheless, she has been successful. She made a name for herself with this bed. So obviously, there's art somewhere there.
It was actually bought by Saatchi and Saatchi
Absolutely.
for £150,000.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the modern art.
I think at this stage I need to bring in the idea of the shift in emphasis that occurred around 1890s into the 1900s with Cézanne and with Picasso. And up until then, art was judged by how skillful it was, how well you could represent nature. But with Picasso, and later on with Pollock, and at the most with with Duchamp, there is a change of emphasis, and art is not seen anymore by how skillful you are, but how clever, how your ideas are.
That's right.
So, is this a clever idea that becomes good art, or is this a clever idea that becomes bad art? Because if everything is art, then what we have to do is say, well, what is good and what is bad?
It's a good idea. I wouldn't say it's good art. It's a good idea.
I think a very imaginative idea, and I think it's good art. But then people will probably repeat this image quite easily. So when art is can be easily repeated, it then probably doesn't become art. Huh? But at the time it's emerged and was breaking new ground in the concept of art, you could argue that it was art.
I don't think it would have worked again as a repetition.
No.
Because once we have seen the bed in the gallery situation, it becomes in our minds that that bed was seen in a gallery situation. So we carry that with us everywhere. We don't need to see it again. We need to see a Rembrandt every day. We need to keep on coming back to the Rembrandt, and we will always see beauty there, and every day will be different. But the bed, we don't need to see it again, because we got a bed at home, an unmade bed at home. So just the idea of the bed in the gallery is enough to tell us that somebody thought of that.
But I think it is art in the sense that it's a very original bed with all the shambles which seem to indicate.
I can't agree with Patrick.
No?
I'm sorry, we're quarrel here. I don't think it's an original bed. I think it's a disgusting bed of a woman that drinks, of a woman that at this time of her life.
I must stop you here with her. She went through a very traumatic period, and she was suicidal, and she spent 3 days in this bed. So there is this confessional aspect to this sculpture, we want to call it that.
And that is, if we're going to talk about art, that is where the art is. The art is that she thought, I mean, if I go now and say, well, I'm going to do my own bed and rumple up, you know, my sheets and put my bottles of, not vodka, because I don't drink vodka, but whiskey, probably. It's been done before. It's not sensationalism anymore. So, you know, I mean, this is successful because nobody ever thought of it before. She had the courage and the guts, the courage, and what in Spanish one might say, cara dura, to say, now I'm going to exhibit. Well, obviously she was chosen to exhibit.
She wasn't doing it by herself, because it seems to me she had to convince the curator of the Tate Gallery. So she had an accomplice.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that what we're saying is, for modern art or contemporary art or conceptual art to be successful, you need the creator and the accomplice who agrees with you that it's art. Yeah. And then they put it in the gallery
and then
it becomes art.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, I have great respect for Tracy Emin, really, because what she's done, nobody else has. You know, here we are in a TV program talking about this bed. 1998, I'm not very good at maths, how many years later? 14, 15 years later. So obviously she's achieved something where people will still talk about this forever.
Yeah, I think the success goes to the curator of the Tate for having the guts to having said yes to it.
Yes.
And I'm afraid we have to leave it here, Patrick and Willa.
Okay.
It's been very interesting. We could keep on talking for hours, I can see. But we have to bring it to a close. So thanks very much for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you at home for watching.
Pleasure.
And see you next week. God bless.